Alright, so for discussion 3, we're supposed to discuss the representation of the characters and locals in Mambo Betty's The Christ of Bomba. And so I'm just going to first off start by describing, the three main characters, which are Zakaria, he's the cook, and then there's Dennis, who's the houseboy, and he's 14 years old. He's also the narrator, who narrates everything that happens throughout the missionary tour and whatever. And then there's the main character, which is the father, Reverend Drummond. And so the story is just about his plan to spread Christianity in Africa, Bomba specifically. And so it starts off, or the book starts off with describing the father living in Bomba, and then he introduces this group of women called the Sixa. And so the Sixa is a place where women help in the plantations and schools and workshops, and they provide labor, and they're given money to do so. And they also practice Christianity in the Sixa as well. So I mean, anything against what the Father says is a sin, technically. And then to compare, the different types of women throughout the book, there are the Tala villagers, and then there's also these women that participate in the Sixa. And the Tala villagers, I mean, they're pretty native to Bomba, or they're native to Africa, and so they really disliked the way that colonialism works, and how Europeans just came in and took over the land, and they don't believe in the Christianity, therefore they're kind of resistant against the father and his beliefs. And so the father, he really wants to recruit people from these villages and teach them Christianity. And so after 3 years, of not helping these villages, he says that he's done punishing them by not helping them. And so he goes on a tour with Dennis and Zakaria, and they go from village after village. And what the Reverend eventually realizes is that not everybody believes in his ideas, and they don't necessarily like the fact that he just came in and he was so invasive about it, whatever. And so eventually it kind of gets bad because there's these woman characters in the book too. Catherine, she's this woman part of the Sixa, and she has an affair with Zakaria on the trip, or on the tour, sorry. And so I mean, eventually Catherine does seduce the 14-year-old boy Dennis, and the Reverend does find out because Dennis he confesses to the Reverend, but he also he knows that it was wrong and it was against Christianity, but he knows that the right thing to do is confess and tell the Reverend what happened. And so he tells him, and then the Reverend, I mean, he feels like he's defeat on his tour to spread Christianity. And so after this point, I mean, it turns into this. It's kind of they go back, but on their way back, Zakaria and Catherine both get beaten up because Zakaria's wife Clementine comes and beats up Catherine to demonstrate that she believes in monogamy, which means that, I mean, you're kind of exclusive to the person that you're in a relationship with. And then once Clementine has exposed Catherine for being a woman part of the Sixa, the father is that's just ultimate defeat at this point. And Zakaria also gets beaten up by Catherine's husband as well. And so, I mean, I'm just going to skip all the way to the end. Eventually he finds out that the Sixa was being used as a brothel, and he thinks that he's defeat. And I mean, there was this venereal disease that got brought in, and so he kind of shuts it all down, and he's been threatened by the administrator of the region. And just to compare the book to the novel, I would just say that in both I believe that it would be safe to say, I mean, the women are completely abused, and they're totally treated inferior to the male figure in both scenarios. And but we're also shown that, I mean, there's people who are trying to be progressive and speak for them at the same time.